Hello and good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to the FMO clients, NpM partners, invitees of this webinar. Thank you for joining. The topic of today's webinar, hosted by both FMO and NpM, the platform for inclusive finance, is technological innovations to enable farmer finance. My name is Lonneke Nootboom, and I'm part of the FMO FinTech team and will be your moderator of today. As FMO, we aim to support our financial institution clients in their digital transformation journey. And we try to help them level up by opening our network of consultants, partners, banks, and fintechs from across the globe, building knowledge on certain key fintech themes, and we provide grant support for fintech projects. Through this webinar, we aim to inform you about the potentials of fintech within your organization. We want to spark interest and show concrete examples of fintech companies and the solutions they have to offer. Today, the speakers lined up for you will approach the topic of AgTech from different angles. Technological innovation within the agriculture sector is something FMO is exploring, partly also together with the NpM Platform for Inclusive Finance, our co-host of today. I'll hand over to Catalina from NpM for a quick intro from their side and their perspective on this topic before introducing our other speakers. Catalina, over to you. Catalina, if it doesn't work, I can also show your slides on my screen. And it seems like you're on mute still.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Yes. Apologies for this. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. We are, as the NpM Platform for Inclusive Finance, we're very happy to co-host this webinar with FMO. I'll say a few words about NpM. We are a platform that gathers 13 members. These are all investors, Dutch investors active in the inclusive finance space. As you can see from the logos here, they are of very varied nature. We have commercial banks. We've got, of course, FMO, the development bank. We've got asset managers. We've got NGOs. We've got even a crowdfunding platform. And on the side here, I have a very short summary. So we are 13 members. And in total, combined, they invest over 4.2 billion, which is quite significant, as this represents 12% of the worldwide funding going into inclusive finance. So it is a significant player worldwide. And through all of these 13 members, we can reach over 1,100 FSPs. And we're active over 97 countries. And as NpM, we really look into a pre-competitive space where all of the investors can learn and act together and pilot and look at new projects. And so for this topic specifically, we've obviously, as many here, we realized that recent technology development can increase the outreach of financial services to rural area and specifically to smallholder farmers. And if we look at the fact that over 2 billion people depend on smallholder farmers for their livelihoods, and that 70% of food supply comes from smallholder farmers, and add to that climate change will be and is already affecting yield, we are in quite some trouble to feed a growing population. So we zoomed in on the role of technology as a platform, and we rolled out what we call the Geodata for inclusive finance and food security. So we call it G4IFF. And we set ourselves the goal to promote projects that incorporate geodata-based financial services and to learn from these projects. And the only thing I will zoom in here is a challenge. We decided to take a challenge format in order to promote these projects. This was supported by the Rabo Foundation, by FMO, and by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. As you can see, we invited many tech companies, and we've challenged them to develop an application or a platform of some sort that translates relevant geodata for financial service providers to use and eventually be able to increase their outreach to smallholder farmers. So you can see here, we've had from all the proposals made a selection of 17 participants. We had Accenture host an accelerator program. Out of these, you can see the 6 finalists here. The criteria were financial inclusion, the technical aspect, of course, the scalability of the solution that they came up with, how services could be integrated, how many services, additional services could be integrated in this solution, the development impact, and the business innovation of the solution. So you'll see here that the 3 winners are AgriWallet, Apollo Agriculture, and VanderSat, which is quite neat because you will hear their story in a bit. And they are now piloting their solution. They received a grant of 125,000 euros to pilot their solution. All 3 happen to be in Kenya, looking at different crops, and will be piloting this until the end of June. So from NpM side, we're very eager to learn from these cases and to hear about the use of technology and how FSPs are making use of it, what works, what doesn't work. And I would just like to point out that we are planning to have an additional webinar on April 10th, and we will stay in touch with the participants to delve a bit further again into the use of tech specifically for the winners and a few other projects that we've been looking at. So with that, I give it back to Lonneke, and I hope you enjoy the webinar.
Wonderful. Thank you, Catalina. So let me introduce the speakers of today. Rajiv Shetty will kick off with a general introduction to technology within the agricultural space. He will set the stage before Céline from VanderSat will share how geodata can be a tool for agricultural risk assessment. We'll also hear within that presentation how Rabobank is using this tool. Then CropIn brings the perspective from an advanced platform player, connecting different actors in the value chain. And lastly, Jehiel Oliver from Hello Tractor explains how software as a service can provide financial institutions with better insights on agri-target markets. We'll have time for questions after each presentation, so please note down all your burning questions in the comment box, and I will then post the questions to all speakers. Enjoy the presentation, and I will hand over to Rajiv right now. Rajiv is engaged in impact finance, digitization in agriculture, and distributed energy. He studied computer engineering at Stevens Institute of Technology, holds an MBA from INSEAD, and was the CFO at FarmForce. Rajiv, you can take the floor now.
Thanks, Lonneke. Warm welcome to everyone. Smallholder financing is a huge global opportunity, as there are an estimated 270 million farmers in the regions of South and Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Latin America. They are estimated to need over $200 billion in short-term agri-credit, long-term agri-credit, and non-agricultural credit. The current supply is estimated to be around $50 billion, and that is largely in non-agricultural credit. Taking a single country example, in Tanzania, one of the breadbaskets of Africa, 9% of total lending goes to the agricultural sector, which contributes 22% of GDP. Less than 1% of total lending and less than 4% of microfinance lending goes to smallholder agriculture. The figures vary, but the fundamentals are relatively similar across countries. Agriculture is inherently risky, and there are a number of fundamental and structural challenges in providing credit. In short-term credit, seasonal and irregular cash flows result in lumpy repayments. And with long-term credit, investments typically have long gestation periods. There are high costs to establishing a retail presence, to develop products, to implement specialized underwriting processes, and to serve small transactions in low-density areas where it's hard to get around and connect with people. There is exposure to systemic risks, and repayments are very sensitive to these risks. Stress events can trigger widespread impairments and reschedulings. Risk mitigation mechanisms are expensive or not easily available. So institutions have typically coped through excessive credit rationing and a heavy reliance on land collateral with high collateral ratios. Collateral is typically inadequately formalized and insufficient to qualify for meaningful long-term credit. And under widespread stress, collateral is also exposed to covariant risks. Technology innovations can help with all of these challenges through data, analytics, connectivity, and transparency among actors. Innovation can also broaden collateral with information. We can know more about the quality and productivity of what the farmer owns, about the farmer's knowledge and access to agronomic support to prevent loss in a timely manner, about the farmer's social circle, and about the farmer's customers and contracts. In this way, a portfolio of collaterals approach can expand the provision of credit. We can see here, at a glance, the enormous gap between financing need and supply. Farmers are segmented here into three categories, following an approach introduced by CGAP. On the right side, 60% of smallholders are non-commercial farmers, operating on average less than 1 hectare, growing staple crops with very limited access to informal agri-finance. In the middle, 33% of smallholders are commercial farmers in loose value chains, operating 1 to 2 hectares, growing mainly staple crops, but also some cash crops. They have limited access to informal agri-finance. Loose value chains imply that farmers have the ability to side sell and avoid repayments from being captured from sales proceeds. And on the left side, only 7% of smallholders are commercial farmers in tight value chains, operating more than 2 hectares, growing mainly cash crops, accessing a mix of informal and formal agri-finance. Some of the 60 to 65% of non-agricultural credit that is being provided across the three categories, credit that is unsuitable for agriculture, may be leaking over into short-term agricultural uses and greatly increasing risk for farmers. The majority of short-term agri-credit goes to the small fraction of commercial farmers in tight value chains, and the majority of this is provided by value chain actors. The provision of long-term agri-credit is negligible. Now, the provision of agricultural financing assumes that farmers can generate income gains that make the risk and cost of financing worthwhile. The greatest income gains come from productivity-enhancing technologies, such as quality seeds and fertilizers, micro-irrigation, mechanization, and smarter farm IT. These deliver income gains of 80 to 140%, far greater than the 20 to 60% gains delivered by technologies that only reduce value chain inefficiencies. So collaboration to deliver and finance productivity-enhancing technologies will have the greatest impact. It's also important to note that farmers in the commercial tight value chain segment on the left are not less likely to be in poverty than the non-commercial farmers on the right. The likelihood is about the same. provision of credit to the smaller segment of commercial farmers in tight value chains is more likely to include high-risk farmers. So while the reach is smaller, there can be a higher impact. On the other hand, in direct lending to non-commercial farmers, credit is likely to go to the lowest risk farmer. So there may be a lower impact, but the potential reach is greater. In a commercial farming sector such as cocoa, 90% of global production comes from commercial smallholders. While chocolate makers here in Switzerland are doing quite well, farmers in the producing regions are earning just 78 US cents per day, compared to a living wage of $2.51. At the same time, a lack of training and input financing is depleting the soil and driving production into protected forest areas that are rich in organic nutrients. So perhaps technology innovation can help organize the market in a way that democratizes the benefits typically expected from structured value chains, while also enabling farmers to do what is necessary to improve soil health, farm productivity, and their livelihoods, decoupled from the primary interests of value chain actors. The IFC has published a number of reports, such as a how-to guide for agricultural lending, and last year, the Handbook of Digital Financial Services for Agriculture. These reports provide excellent analysis of financing approaches and technology collaborations with several case studies from around the world. Their research outlines a number of models to finance farmers directly and indirectly, as listed in the table below. Technology platforms are connecting farmers, movable assets, suppliers, and buyers in ways that engage one or more of these financing approaches. And financial institutions can be partners in providing capital to these platforms. Insurance solutions are critical as well in expanding credit. It's important to note that defaults rise when yields are low, but also when there's a supply glut and prices collapse. So there's a left tail and right tail risk in yields. The greatest benefit to farmers and financial institutions may come from technical and financial innovations to protect farmer revenues rather than just ensure inputs, and to optimize crop selection, and to enable processing of excess supply. Technology providers enable financing in three ways. The first way is by providing products directly to financial institutions and insurance service providers to enable the provision of credit. The second way is by providing technology solutions to agricultural value chains that enable the integration of credit. And the third way is by directly providing credit to farmers and small agribusinesses backed by institutional capital. This third way points to the fact that collaboration may come with some complexity from overlapping capabilities, especially when there are multiple players involved, such as mobile network operators, agricultural service providers, or mainstream financial technology companies. Technology partnerships are essential to developing and operating a competitive private sector smallholder financing business with customer satisfaction at the scale required to be profitable. Pain points can be alleviated by using technology innovations first to select and enter markets by understanding agricultural potential, cropping economics, farmer segments, and value chain structure. Second, to support underwriting by collecting, verifying, and benchmarking data. And third, to support monitoring of key production activities, crop development, yield forecasts, and price trends. We are very excited to now hear from three amazing innovators with strong product market fit and capable management teams that can be reliable institutional partners. So back to you, Luneka.
Thank you, Reggie, for that great start of this webinar. We'll now hear from the first company in this webinar by Céline Nobel from VanderSat. She's the Social and Environmental Initiatives Coordinator, building up a social and environmental impact department. Céline is also working on Tara, a tool for agricultural risk advice, and she'll tell you more about that in the presentation. Céline, you can take the floor. Céline, are you able to start sharing your screen? Right, that was a nice opening sound. Otherwise, I can do the slide click for you as long as you talk.
Okay, but they hear me. Yes. Okay, good. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you all hear me. My name is Céline Nobel, and I will present about VanderSat. But first of all, FMO and NpM, thank you very much for inviting us. VanderSat is a commercial Earth observation satellite data company, and we have been founded in 2015, and we are stated in Haarlem. And together with 25 employees that have different backgrounds in Earth science, Earth observation scientists, data scientists, and IT specialists, and business developers, we have been building core data products over the last 3 years. These are basically mainly based on passive microwave data, and the main core products are 100-meter soil moisture, land surface temperature, and vegetation optical depth, and also an inundation product. 1 second. And you might be wondering, why would you care about passive microwave data? Well, first of all, this is a particular part of the energy spectrum that are measured by special satellites. And the main... Oké, willen jullie iets minder... yeah. That are measured by special satellites that can penetrate through clouds and darkness. And as we are the only satellite data company in the world that is looking at these satellites, we can provide high-resolution data at field scale every day globally, and we don't have limitations when it's cloudy or when there's a dark night. And unlike other data companies, we have a record that tells us for the last 40 years what happened with the water inside the soil and what happened with the crops underground. And with the API and the VanderSat viewer, we are flexible to deliver this data at 100 meters, 100 by 100 meters, near real time, which basically means every 6 hours after overpass, and in any format or model that is needed by our clients. And I will give you an example of such a data set. Okay. Apparently you don't see the screen I want you to see. Maar hoe moet ik verder dan? I doe het niet. 1 second, please. We have some technical issues. Yes. And I will give you an example of this difference. On the left corner, you see the Sentinel NDVI data, which is the traditional satellite data that is used to measure crop healthiness. And as you can see on this picture, it is scattered by white things in the image, which are clouds. And this results in that NDVI normally doesn't give a fully consistent view in space and time. And in the left corner, you see VanderSat VOD, which is vegetation optical depth. And this can be considered an alternative to NDVI, but in many cases also complementary to NDVI. And what VOD does, it's a parameter to show the moisture in the vegetation, which is also related to crop healthiness. But the difference is that it's not limited by clouds, and we can provide a cloud-free pattern. And this is because VOD is also based on passive microwaves. Light. So why is then VanderSat soil moisture so relevant for financial institutions? And we think there are 3 main products and services you could think of that could help FSPs to provide services to smallholders for all the reasons that have just been mentioned. And the first one is that with this soil moisture, you can provide area-specific crop suitability, insights and maps. Because when you want to know something about crop healthiness and you look at, for example, satellite precipitation, this precipitation value that is measured will not most directly tell you something about the plant available water, and therefore not tell you that most directly how much water the crop has to grow. Whereas if you look at soil moisture, which is more directly related to the plant available water, it will also reflect better to what extent the crop is having a hard time or not. Because not every raindrop that is measured will eventually end up in the roots of crops. And therefore, soil moisture is a very good parameter to monitor crops at a lower cost because it provides daily information. We no longer need to have so much field visits, and we can automate this process a lot better. And it's also a very good parameter for early warning of crop loss. And therefore, well, as it's based on satellite data, the technology we developed is scalable, low cost, and reliable, and provides reliable risk information for improved credit scoring when you want to provide agricultural loans, but also for risk assessment with respect to agricultural insurance, because this so much the data set decreases basis risk to a large extent. And that brings me to the solution that VanderSat has been developing, the winning solution of the NpM challenge, which is called Tara. It's already been mentioned, but Tara is a tool for agricultural risk advice, which is a global risk assessment platform for credit scoring and agricultural advice. And Tara is a solution to a very big problem, as smallholders generally have limited access to basic financial products because the premium and the interest rates are simply too high for them. And at the same time, FSPs face excessive risk when they want to offer financial services to those smallholders because there's a lack of high-resolution data at field scale. And the quality of existing data is simply too low, and that will bring me just a quick view to the next slide, where you see the VanderSat viewer on the right, where we have translated core scale resolution data on the left, below in the column where it's written from informative, to actually actionable data, where you see our 100 by 100 meter soil moisture, and there we can distinguish between different farm fields, and that makes it possible to actually build products like we propose with Tara. So the concept behind Tara is that it combines VanderSat data with historical loan and payment data, and that this combination provides revolutionary insights because it will be possible for the first time to distinguish and quantify non-payments among smallholders, but more importantly, the fact of differentiate between the risks that are faced when a farmer wants to be, when a farmer asks for a loan or an insurance. Because with our data set and the climate record, we can distinguish between the natural conditions, so the climatic trend, but also look at the farmer ability and the paying capacity, which relates to trustworthiness of the farmer, excuse me. And we are working on this project Tara with Acre and Tula. And the platform will eventually deliver blended financial solutions for FSPs, such as mobile credit scoring and loan insurance advisory packages. Yes. And as Catalina already said, Tara is part of the Geodata for Inclusive Finance and Food trajectory. And it focuses on helping FSPs to help smallholders. And initially, Tara will focus on the three on one particular smallholder group, which is semi-commercial, and we hope to close the financial gap for this this farmer group. But eventually, we will tell about it later. We hope to also aim on the other farm groups. So shortly, we are working on a prototype that should be workable and ready in May. It is a risk assessment tool, and Tara will be available on the API and visible in the VanderSat viewer, and it will incorporate product recommendations also. In addition, we are going to engage stakeholders because that's in the end the most important. And with that aim, there will be a scoping meeting on the 1st of March, and we will present our prototype probably in May. And another important part of Tara is a strategy to come to an operational product, which also includes all the different angles from the different partners that need to collaborate to actually come up with this technological solution. Well, that's are a lot of words, but I'm going to tell you that because of the unique characteristics of the VanderSat data and our operational service, many clients and organizations have already become VanderSat's clients. For example, we have two operational services we offer to Swiss Re. First one is the VanderSat Soil Moisture Index Insurance that is operational in Kazakhstan, and the other is the VanderSat Burned Area product Blaze, which is calculating fire damage. The second example is Tara itself, which we work on with Aker and Tula. And another example is Rabobank, for whom we are currently doing a project in Ethiopia. And Albert Bogaert himself, head of innovation of Rabobank, is going to tell you about the services VanderSat is currently offering to Rabobank. I hope Albert is online and speaking.
Yes, I'm here, Céline. Thank you very much. I presume everybody can hear me. Good morning, everybody. I will explain why we are doing this pilot with VanderSat in Ethiopia. In the end, smallholder finance is all about risk and transaction costs and reducing that. And how can you reduce risk? It's all about selecting clients that have lower risk, but it's also about adapting disbursement schemes and taking timely action, basically. And also a better advised farmer in terms of agronomic services is a lower risk farmer. What is often forgotten when talking about barriers to finance for smallholders is that finance is also about transaction costs. You can have a low risk but still have very high transaction costs, and banks will simply not finance smallholders. And reducing transaction costs is all about optimal use of staff, resources, cars, etc. So that's about monitoring. From the side of Rabobank and Rabo Foundation, we believe Geodata can play an important role in reducing both the risk and the transaction costs. That's why we are involved in a number of initiatives together with NpM, together with a lot of partners, and also with VanderSat in Ethiopia. And how does it work, actually? One of the main limitations, also Céline mentioned that, it's all about there's a lot of cloud cover. So you may have a beautiful picture, and if it's cloudy for 30 days, you cannot do the monitoring as a bank. Well, you can imagine that's not very motivating for a bank to start working with geodata. It's also good if you have time series, if you can analyze trends. And that's what we find very interesting in VanderSat. It's a longer period, it's daily information. And especially the VanderSat data combined with high resolution data is what we find extremely interesting. So we're doing that pilot now. We're halfway, and the first results are very interesting. Céline will show you a sheet later on, a slide. What is, of course, very important is to adapt geodata services to specific circumstances and to various user groups. You have banks, you have farmers. One may have a use case in precision farming, another one will have a use case in monitoring of farmers. And it's important to understand very well why you are using geodata, for which purpose. So what we find very interesting in VanderSat as a standalone product is, of course, the three properties that were mentioned, which is about soil temperature, which is about vegetation optical depth, so a green index or a proxy for that. And also for soil moisture. Looking at soil moisture, it's an early indicator for crop failure. You will have low soil moisture before the crops start to, let's say, to wilt. But especially what we're testing now in Ethiopia is the combined signal of NDVI, high resolution pictures, imagery with lower resolution, but more reliable and daily VanderSat data. And that's what we hope to use in the future, this more or less best of two worlds combination. We have a slide in the next two pages how that would look like. If you look at all the black areas on the screen, which is a lot, that is basically, it can happen for 30 days. And if you're in a certain tropical country around the equator, it can be for 60 days. So you only see black. And you can't see an NDVI or a growth index. The idea of combining the VanderSat data with NDVI data is to look at the next slide. That's basically the water is still there, but it reveals a lot more. Of course, the resolution is lower than the traditional NDVI, but in a period where you have a lot of cloud cover, it helps a lot as a bank to understand what is happening in certain areas. For that, the resolution is high enough on one side of the mountain or another side of the mountain, for instance. That's going to be very interesting for loan monitoring. And imagine you have this data on a daily basis. You have it for the last 18 years or even 40 years in some cases. That can help you a lot to understand which crops are suitable for a certain area, but also what the effect is of climate change, for instance. I give the floor back to you.
Thank you, Albert. That's a good addition. We at last have been asked to give our recommendations to the financial sector from the perspective of a data service provider. And one of the things we see in the field is that operational services and business around good geodata are crucial to contribute together to decrease the food security problem. And therefore, we believe it's important to invest in scalable techniques. And also, from experience, we know that in-house data experts within the financial service provider organizations or bank or insurer is crucial for scalability and also for knowledge sharing, because the data is better understood if there are also data analysts in the house. And at last, we think it's important that FSPs also collect data and build on long data records, because for us to be able to compare our satellite data and compare the climatic records that is included in our data set, it works best if there's also data records in-house like yields or farming practices, loan histories. And these are, the main recommendations. I don't know, Lonneke, how much time do I still have? Because I have one last slide, but I don't know. We can skip it.
I think, guys, this has been very informative. There's one question from the audience that I would like to answer. So, if a question coming from Gerard Voorrips from Triple Jump. On Tara, how do you cooperate with financial service providers? How will these partner financial service providers actually reach out to the farmers? So Céline, if you could answer that question still, and then we move on to the next speaker.
Yes. Yeah, I think maybe it's the best for Amos of Acre to answer this question. Would that be possible to give him the floor with this question?
Yes, that is possible. Amos?
Yes, so on Acre side, we work with different value chain players. I can give a quick example of how we've been doing our business before, specifically as an intermediary in relation to agriculture with insurance. What we have done is that for the last 9 years, we've been working with the large-scale farmers. These are the commercial farmers. And basically what they do is that they access loans for their production purposes, for their agricultural purposes and whichever other purposes. And these loans, the only collateral that they can be able to use to access these loans is through insurance. So that is one way which we work with financial institutions, in that they require insurance as an addition to the loans that these farmers access, and this reduces the risk. It buffers the bank itself, and it also gives more credibility or more power to the farmer, so that it does not need to use other forms of collateral like physical property, title deeds, and that kind of thing. And that is the approach we are using to the smallholder. So in Tara, we are looking at engaging different financial institutions, different risk institutions which deal with agriculture, and they will be able to access this platform depending, our stakeholders workshops will be able to take the inputs of these different financial institutions to see how do they want to access this data. This does not just limit the data to at Geodata. Geodata is the biggest component, but other data sets, farmer production data set, location data sets, which we already have access to. And the approach we are using is we use digital systems to collect data, location data from farmers, especially smallholder. So we have both USSD, both mobile phone applications, which use a bit of triangulation and geolocation to provide exact location of farmers. And we can provide this to financial institutions with enough agri-risk scores that can be able to, they can be able to use to give these farmers loans.
All right, thanks, Amos. A nice example of how insurance, geodata providers, and FSPs work together for smallholder farmer finance. Gera, I hope that answers your question. With that, I also want to thank Céline and Albert for the presentation on VanderSat. We now move on to Krishna Kumar, founder and CEO of CropIn Technology Solutions, who has made it possible to enable data-driven farming by connecting all the stakeholders in the agri ecosystem. CropIn is a leading global full-stack AgTech organization that provides software as a service solutions, thus enabling businesses to utilize technology to drive their initiatives around digitization, predictability, risk management, traceability, and sustainability. Krishna, you can share your screen with your presentation. Over to you. Give me 1 second, guys. It feels we've lost Krishna for a moment. Krishna, yes, wonderful.
I'm going to represent CropIn. So I'm a Krishna and the founder and CEO of the company. Before I get into it, I'll give you a little background of CropIn. So CropIn is a B2B SaaS-based AgTech company, and we enable enterprise and organization to adopt data-driven approach in their ag businesses or ag initiatives. So why CropIn? If you look at, we are going to be 10 billion people, and Rajiv talked about it, and we have to double the production by mid of the century, and that too we have to do it sustainably, so that we don't abuse the soil and fertility of the land. And if you look at, also the land is shrinking. So by 1970 it was 0.38 hectare per person, and in 2000 it reduced to 0.23 hectare per person, and it is predicted that by 2050 is going to be 0.1 hectare per person. So there is a pressure to double the farming with the reducing acreage, and that too sustainably. If you look at in agriculture, there are so many challenges, right, from climate shift, soil degradation, low financial security, yields are not good, no traceability. And that's called for the digitization of this industry, which is at the very nascent stage, and people are talking about it. And if you look at the earlier old drivers, where if you wanted to produce more food, you go and farm on the larger mass of land. Then the machinery came in, like tractors and tillers, which helps to increase the productivity. And then later it came like fertilizers, improved seed varieties and hybrids, which enable the further improvement in the yield and productivity. But now what we are seeing is we have to talk about data and platform and the people, how we can do a connected farming. So can data enable a farmer to become a better farmer, understanding the right package of practices or deal with his soil and climate change very effectively? Can we make him learn through this, connecting them to the right set of people like agronomists on the platform? and then connecting the whole ecosystem, right from the farming companies, input companies, seed companies, banking and insurance, on the so that they have access of data and they can maximize the per acre value there. So CropIn, built a platform basically and enable the industry to adopt digitization in their supply chain, where the endpoint is a farmer, and then learn from this data, and that's a machine learning based insight, and help the customers like farmers and enterprise to become more smarter, increase the per acre value, which I'm going to talk through. And so being able to do that on our platform, we build various products like Smart Farm, Smart Risk, M Warehouse, Smart Sales and Acre Square, and we cut across all the ecosystem players. So we work with farming companies, farm input companies, BFSI, export and pack houses, input sales companies, and then government and development agencies. And as you see, different products are used for different use case. But if you look at the Smart Risk, which is this one, is basically targeted towards the BFSI, banking and financial services and insurance companies, to help them to minimize their risk and penetrate more deeper in a small holding in terms of lending and building a new product, some insurance product. So in nutshell, we are catering to the complete agri ecosystem, and different products are mapped to different type of organization who are engaging with the farmer. But in this slide, we are going to talk more about how our products are helping the banking and financial services and insurance companies using the data to its maximum. So if you look at, we talked about agri lending, we talked about agri insurance, and if you look at the biggest challenge they have is how can they build a product which is low value, high and the high volume product which can be serviced at the low cost and reach out to maximum smallholder farmers. And also we have got 570 million farms globally, out of which 80% of the are smallholders, and they feed almost 80% of the global population. So it's become very eminent that we should take this lending to their doorstep, and it is required to invest around 80 billion annually to achieve our goal of doubling the productivity for the growing population. So in agri insurance also, how do they build new products? How can they understand the nuances of the risk growing up in that region, around the farms, around the farmer, around the regional, around that region? And this is what we try to do on our platform. While we provided a lot of products to be used in the farming domain for digitalization, it started generating huge amount of data on the platform, which was required to machine learn. So today we deal with like 265 crops, 5 million acres of cropland digitized, around 2.1 million farmers, and that constituted to around 700 billion data sets on our platform, which is helping us to learn about different crops and then predict, become more predictive and prescriptive for our customers in the banking and insurance sector. So that was the instigating point in 2015 when we saw this huge amount of data on the platform. We thought of building this Smart Risk for the segment. So we tried to develop two capabilities. So can we understand a plot and understand the risk around it? For example, what are the crops has been growing in last 2 years? How many crop cycle the farmer takes? Or what is the health of the crop? What could have been the yield in the past? And then also monitoring the current stage. And this is how we try to predict the risk on a farm. And then we also try to build a capability to look at a large region and then detect crops on those regions, and then say how much area is on the corn, how much area on the wheat or a mustard, how much is doing good, how much is doing bad. Sorry. And then provide this insight in the real time to our customers. If you go, so I'll take a use case of agri lending, and where we target the bank, NBFC, and microfinance institutions. If you look at, they have a high, the problem statement they have is a high risk in ag lending, higher delinquencies, managing the NPM timely collections, data availability for underwriting so that they can minimize the risk and source the right set of loans for them. Then the high cost of monitoring and also acquisition of those farmers to lend, and then scaling up a new product in a new region with all the confidence once they know the risk and the opportunities in those regions, and then the real-time regional agri-risk opportunity for effective decision making. So these are some of the pain points which they have and they want to address through the data. And so for the lending, if somebody is looking at to lend a farmer, they bring the farmer and the plot on our platform. We try to assess the history for the past years, that what kind of a crop he has done, so whether it was a wheat or his mustard. So we detect the crops, we understand the health, we talk about the performance of the farm and what could have income they have generated. That is all through ML and AI. And then once they lend to this farmer, we also help them to monitor the current crop, whether the farmer has gone for the new crop or not, or how the current crop is doing, whether it has matured or whether they have started harvesting, which will impact your predicting the NPA delinquencies and also impacts your collections. So how can you go to a higher collection? So this is done on every loan portfolio of the farmer. So we can assess every farmer and every loan and give them a trigger point so that they can minimize the cost of managing those portfolio. There is no human intervention, and those triggers can help them to reduce their cost by introducing technology in their underwriting and monitoring process. Similarly, so this is one of the use cases in India where we were working with the NBFC, and around 10,000 farmer loans were dispersed and monitored through our platform. And the use case was to help them to underwrite a loan and help them understand about every farmer and the crop behavior in the past, and also monitor the portfolio, like how the crops is doing. If the crop is not going to do well, then their paying capacity comes down, and then that will lead to a NPA or a delinquencies. So that was done in Maharashtra. So we provided a dashboard where they can see different farmers, their crops, and then which variety, and then they also see the how the plot was performing, what has happened in the past. They can just slide down the sliders and they can see what happened in the past, and they can see the current as well. So this is some of the peak view of applications. Then we also provide them a regional level analytics, like crop acreage and yield analysis. So for example, in a given postal code, if you are looking to invest more and go and lend more, they want to understand what kind of a crop is grown there, what has been the yield in the past on those crops, what is the total acreage, and so that they can confidently go and say, okay, we should focus more on this postal code than the other one because the risk is higher there. And they can get all this insight through the terminal which we have, which they can access. And they can also see the water stress that in those given region or in those plots, how is the water stress looks like. And so if the water stress has been always higher in the seasons, then probably there's a high risk portfolio, and that raises alarm for the customer to go into that particular region or to deal with a high risk portfolio. Similarly, in the agri-insurance sector, we work with the government and also with the agri-insurance player in India. So the close to 16 such agri-insurance player in India who has in 2016-17 they have covered around 50 million smallholders in the country, and the government participates into it. So they basically give them a close to 80% of the coverage premium, and then the farmer pays the rest. And it becomes a very challenging for the government to do the yield benchmarking because this yield-based insurance happens there, and close to 1.5 million such crop cutting experiments is done throughout the country to assess and benchmark the yield so that claims can be settled, and that's a huge exercise. And then that's where we play a major role, where we help them to do the crop cutting experiment through technology. So we basically we analyze the crop, and then we map the villages. We say how much acreage has been currently under potato, how much acreage is on the wheat, and then we also predict the health and also compare with the actual CC, and then we provide them the deviations, what has been the deviation. So basically we have a capability to detect in any given region, detect different crops growing, and then how the health of the crop, and then what would have been the yield you can expect in the future, so that government insurance company can plan and basically manage their risk there. So these are some of the examples. These are some examples of the crop cutting experiments where the manual intervention is done to do the yield benchmarking. So, as I mentioned, we help them to identify the crop. So if you look at this results here, we are saying this is for the maize crop cutting experiment. So we tell them which is the early sowing region, which is the late sowers, so that you can actually plan where to go and start the crop cutting experiment. Then we also tell them where to choose the plot, so which is the high growth potential area, medium growth potential area, and the low growth potential area. And then this efforts help them to reduce their effort by 40%, so it's a good saving for the government. And that's why we help the insurance sector and the government to play a major role in the insurance side. So if you look at the regional intelligence on the smartest side, we are trying to reduce the time of 60%, and then accuracy to trying to deliver accuracy towards greater than 90%. Basically, if you want a regional analytics, it takes at least 8 weeks. So you do your primary and secondary research around that region, whether you are trying to lend or you are trying to build a bid for an insurance product. Then you use bureau data, third-party surveys, the government sources. That takes another 4 weeks to get that source, and then 2 weeks on the Excel and modeling, which get to our intelligence where you take decisions. But if you're using the smart risk, you just need to select the region, and then in 5 hours you have all kind of update breakups, which is required to either lend or to or for the insurance products. Similarly, for the farmer level intervention, we are trying to give you a scorecard around the farm within 4 hours. The moment the farmers and plots are pushed to our platform, we are providing helping the banks to underwrite a risk with more confidence with the ag alternative data which we process about the history and then income and other stuff. And post dispersal, we help them to audit and monitor the farms on the regular basis. And our target is to reduce the NPA by 30%, and then and they can also increase the penetration with a higher rate, like 20% of a loan portfolio, and reducing the time by 50% in terms of taking the decisions right from origination to disbursement, and also in terms of monitoring and getting the insight back to the organization. From the impact point of view, we are working on close to 5 million acres with 2.1 million farmers globally. We have reached in 30 countries, and we work with around 185 clients right from across the segments. So we work with farming companies, input companies, banking, insurance segment as well. The beauty is we have got 265 crops. So our platform is crop independent and the location independent. We are managing close to 3,500 different varieties on the platform. We have got humongous data around that. We are funded by the Chirate Venture and also Melinda Gates Foundation Strategic Investment Fund, and a Japanese backed venture called BNX. So we just raised our Series B. We are a 150 people organization supporting this whole cause. And yeah, so this is pretty much, we work in close to 30 countries. So these are the spread of our geographies. So we are working very strong in Asia, Africa. We have just entered South America. So we have clients using in Argentina and Brazil, and then also in North America. So this is the CropIn presence as of today. And yeah, so this is pretty much from CropIn side. Thank you.
Thank you, Krishna. That was a very insightful presentation. You covered a lot of ground there. What strikes me most are sort of the last numbers where you say 25% increase of loan portfolio and a 50% reduction of time to make decisions and monitor certain farm portfolios. Those are impressive numbers. Are there any questions from the audience before we move on to our last speaker of today's webinar? You can type them in the Q&A box, and I can read them out to Krishna. I'll give you a couple of seconds, and otherwise we'll move on to Hello Tractor. All right, let's move on to Hello Tractor. If you still think of questions in the meantime, type them in the Q&A box and we'll cover them at the end. Jehiel, it's up to you to engage the audience for the final 15 to 20 minutes. Jehiel Oliver is the founder and CEO of Hello Tractor, an agricultural technology company that connects tractor owners with smallholder farmers in need of tractor services. He was appointed under the Obama administration to serve 2 years as a member of the President's Advisory Council on Doing Business in Africa, where he most recently chaired the Technology Subcommittee. So perfect speaker for this webinar. Jehiel, over to you.
Thank you, Lannika. I appreciate it, and thank you to everyone for joining the webinar. Just a quick sound check. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you very well. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you. So Hello Tractor, we're an agricultural technology company. And as the name suggests, we focus on mechanization. And we started this company roughly 4 years ago. And when we initiated the company, really the goal was to focus on crowding in more investment for tractors in sub-Saharan Africa. As many of you know, there's a dearth of tractors on the continent, and this is a asset that's sorely needed within these rural communities. And so our goal was really to figure out a way to de-risk investments into tractors while simultaneously connecting those tractor owners to farmers in need of those services through a Uber-like model. But as we started this work and as we worked across the ecosystem, what we realized was that mechanization was not only challenged by tractor owners' unwillingness to invest, but also banks lacking the tools to finance tractors in a more intelligent way. And then also dealers providing after-sale support post-sale of a tractor. And so we slowly broaden our solution to meet the needs of these additional stakeholders within our ecosystem. So our platform, it really starts with connecting tractors to the cloud. And we do that through a telematics device, which gives all these ecosystem players that I mentioned visibility around the asset and relevant data points associated with that asset. This telematics device can fit onto any brand of tractor. We load the telematics device with a SIM card with international data that we manage for broader connectivity. Oftentimes, tractor contractors take their tractors not only across the country, but also outside of the country into different countries, particularly in fragmented markets like East Africa, where a tractor contractor will go from Kenya to Tanzania to Uganda following farmer planting behaviors. The telematics device is tamper-proof, so if it's removed, the stakeholders receive notifications either through the tractor owner app or the bank application, which I'll get to later in the presentation. And then there are other features like fuel monitoring, geofencing to protect the tractor asset. Now the data is ported into a tractor contractor application, and the contractor is loosely defined as someone who purchases a tractor as a business asset, delivering tractor services. And this tractor contractor application gives the the tractor owner insights into tractor activity, how many hectares were serviced by their equipment, management of their operators. Oftentimes the owner of the tractor is not the person driving the tractor. Fuel history and efficiency. And then the most important piece is the management of bookings coming in through the booking agent application. So I'm gonna just run over a quick demo. I won't demo the mobile apps, although we can have hopefully some side conversations after the call with those interested where we can go over the mobile app, but I will go over the web app for the tractor contractor. So when a tractor contractor logs in to their application, let me go to the home screen here. They see bookings coming in from that booking application that I mentioned. Now, a tractor owner can employ their own booking agents, or they can receive bookings from independent agents operating in the market. We kind of consider these folks rural entrepreneurs. When those bookings come in, they get logged in the tractor owner's mobile app as well as their web app. And that tractor owner can see details of each booking. And the bookings come in clusters because the farmers' booking services are generally smallholder farmers. And so the agent is responsible for coordinating those bookings into groups so service delivery can happen at economies of scale. The tractor owner logs in to their web or mobile application, in this case, the web application. They can see the clusters. They can see the agent who requested the service. And then they can click in and see more detail about the booking. And this clustering and analytics is powered by IBM Watson. We pull in weather data from the weather company, and we've designed an analytics layer that sits on top of the application that helps the tractor owner in improved decision making. So once that tractor owner clicks on a booking, they see the full detail, the service type, the area, including what farmers need service in their locations, and then the planned service date. And then they can also go into the individual bookings and actually see what that farmer's planting window is, driven by weather company weather forecasts. They can see weather data over a tight window. They can also see a soil profile. And this is powered by the IBM AgroPad, which is a piece of technology that I can go over in greater detail. But it basically is a business card with a small micro sensor where a farmer can place a very small soil sample on that micro sensor and scan the card with our application and immediately receive a soil profile and fertilizer recommendation. And then we also do some yield indexing using the field maps generated through the booking application, the soil profile, and the weather data. And this is also important when we talk about the financing piece, which I'll get to in a bit. And so the tractor owner can get that detail about the individual farms within a cluster and also get a recommendation on what tractors to deploy onto the job. And then also which operator to assign to that job. Now, so let me go on the tractor level view. And what you'll see is for the tractors within the fleet, the system will recommend, in this case, this John Deere 75 horsepower tractor, because of course it needs the appropriate implement that the farmers are looking for. And then of course it has to be a tractor that's being well maintained. So what you'll see right here is this dip in tractor health. That's because the tractor owner did not provide that tractor with its scheduled servicing. But once it did, that tractor health went back up. And so this is a good guide for not only the tractor owner to know which tractor to assign to a job, but this information is also shared with the booking agent and the farmer through the booking agent so that they know that the operator and the tractor being assigned to their job is a tractor that's most suitable to do the job. And so I'll just give a quick example of the tractor operator. In this instance, Abubakar is being recommended for this job because he has experience. He's been, first of all, trained by John Deere on plowing services. He's logged 904 hours in plowing activity, so he's well experienced. And then the skill index pulls in a variety of factors, including not only engine hours, but also his ratings and some other factors that say he's a fairly highly skilled operator in this activity. And so once that booking comes in, you of course pair it, and then the booking closes. Let me get back. I'm not going to go into too much more detail there. And then, of course, the booking agent application is a mobile application that the booking agents use to go out and organize these jobs on behalf of the tractor contractors. Now, this is an application that can be used by individual entrepreneurs. This agent application can be used by individuals hired by the tractor contractor, and a contractor on our platform gets unlimited access to booking agents that they can house within their organization. But it can also be used by microfinance institutions, custom hiring centers like we see in India, tractor dealers, etc. Anybody with high networks of farmers in need of tractor services. And so talk very briefly about our customers. Our largest customer on the supply side or on the tractor side is John Deere. Most recently, we closed a deal with John Deere for 10,000 tractors, and that's just over $250 million in assets being financed using the technology that I'll be discussing in a few seconds here. But John Deere is our largest customer on the tractor side, but we also work with governments. We work with financial institutions, of course, and also individual tractor fleet owners. So as I was mentioning, a third of the machines on our platform are John Deere, but we look to expand our relationships with banking institutions, particularly those financing tractor owners and financing farmers in need of tractor services. So let's jump into the banking technology component of our platform. We don't try and do everything alone. We work very closely with partners. On the banking side, we really saw a need to bring in cognitive solutions to automate and enhance decision-making, both at the credit underwriting level, but also at the portfolio management level. And so we looked to IBM, a market leader in tools for financial institutions, and we co-invested in some really cool technology to improve the decision-making, financing not only the tractor owners, but also the farmers. So how does this work? At the farmer level, we of course provide our technology, the remote soil testing technology that was also done in partnership with IBM, advice on when to plant, weather forecasts, tractor service bookings, of course, which is the core of the platform offering for farmers, and then the yield and productivity estimates that we pulled in from the IBM research lab in India. But with that data, we also empower microfinance institutions that are tasked with financing these smallholder farmers. And the data that's being used to guide that decision is historical productivity data, as well as forecasted productivity data. Every farmer who books tractor services through Hello Tractor has their field boundary mapped through our application. And then once that tractor with the GPS connectivity enters into that field boundary, we cross-check the work that's being completed against the work that was requested. So we have a living record of what area that farmer is planting on. And then we also pull in some innovative credit scoring technology developed by IBM Research Lab in Nairobi, Kenya, which uses unconventional data metrics to credit score and set credit limits for traditionally unbanked populations. And of course, we really push these microfinance institutions to finance not only inputs like fertilizer and seed, but of course, tractor services. But this technology has multiple use cases. It's not just limited to agriculture, although that is our focus. And then on the tractor contractor side, as I mentioned, the technology helps to schedule and pre-book services through the booking agent application. Through this technology, the booking agent can see farmers' fields, the profile of the farm, the productivity of that farm. And before they even deploy that tractor, they have some insight into the quality of the field and its readiness for tractor service, and also a very brief, very basic record of who this farmer is and their likelihood to pay, because oftentimes there is some prepayment with tractor service, but it's not a 100% prepayment. And then, of course, the contractor tools that I mentioned already around managing the tractor, managing the operator, and then managing maintenance. For banks financing these tractor contractors, that same data around scheduled and pre-booked services can be used to underwrite that tractor. So if you are a tractor owner who wants to increase the size of your fleet from, let's say, 5 tractors to 7, that bank can look at that information on pre-booked services and say, hey, you have more than enough pent-up demand for your service to justify a new equipment investment. Or conversely, they may say, you don't have enough farmers lined up. And so instead of underwriting the individual, which is what traditionally happens in financial services in our region, the bank can actually underwrite this productive asset and assign a credit score to that asset based on the business value of the asset within the market, which sounds simple, but it's quite revolutionary in the underwriting of heavy equipment, not only in emerging markets, but just globally. We're also pulling in some predictive maintenance, tractor service demand forecasts, and also operator ratings and ranking of those operators. And these profiles live with that operator even as they move from fleet to fleet, as they oftentimes do, not just in Africa and South Asia, but also actually in the US. If you look at the wheat runners and some of the custom equipment service providers, boom spraying and combines in North America, for instance. So why is this important? Increasing farmer engagement by providing them access to credit to pay for inputs unlocks opportunities for banks to finance a new category of borrower. And that leads to more opportunities for tractor contractors who are delivering those services through Hello Tractor technology. In Nigeria, which is our largest market, we've had 0 defaults of financed tractors. And this comes as a result of the use of technology. We got some great contractors in that market that work incredibly hard. And then some innovative uses of cross guarantees and the ability to seize collateral within a group and repurpose it to another contractor within the group before a default scenario even happens. So really using data in a predictive way to ensure that tractors are always performing at a high level. And then, of course, this drives impact in the market, as tractors are an asset that have been proven to increase yields, the productivity at the farmer level, and create employment for booking agents, and also income opportunities for the tractor owners. So that's my presentation. So I guess we can open it up for some questions.
Thank you, Jehiel. There's one question from the audience around the human factor. If we use all this technology and use it for underwriting, seeing if we can finance the farmer as well as the tractor owner, where does that leave human interaction, and how much do we still combine credit scoring with human interaction?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think in banking and in finance in general, KYC will always be an important factor in the underwriting of risk. Know your customer. And, you know, as you think about at the micro level, cross collateralization is a great de-risking mechanism. And, you know, these kind of harnessing social collateral is also proven to be incredibly valuable. I think what data does and what, you know, these artificial intelligence tools that we're bringing in partnership with IBM, what they do is they help to automate some of that decision making so capital can go out into the market faster. And they also improve the decision making. So you're not only using the traditional levers that I just mentioned, but you also have insight into this farmer is a good credit risk, not only because we have good collateral, whether social or otherwise, but we also know that this person, based on cell phone activity, based on their mobile payment history, based on the productivity of their farm, we know that they represent a very high class of borrower. And then through the credit limit scoring tool, you can precisely recommend how much credit this person can absorb. So the human factor is always there. These are mechanisms to enhance that. On the tractor owner side, I think, you know, there's just not a lot of lending happening there. And I think what we've been able to prove through some success stories with not only John Deere Financial, and some of the commercial banks financing assets is you can unlock an entirely new category of customer who was traditionally unbanked using these new tools. There's still the personal factor, but you know, you can dig deeper into the marketplace with these tools.
Yeah. So, hi, this is Krishna from CropIn. And I think you rightly mentioned that, you know, you can't remove all the human factor from the lending and the other perspective, because the KYC need to be done and the collection need to be done in the small holding scenario. And what we as a company do, give you a lot of ag alternative data which will help you in scoring your model better, and also monitoring those portfolios with more confidence to understand more about your lending portfolio and the risk going forward. So it's additional information, and with this information you can reduce the cost of operation. So if you're meeting the farmer 10 times, you can reduce it to 3 times based on the alerts and the information insights you are getting through the system, where you don't have to really go to the farms.
Also on Tara's side, I can just comment on how we are looking at the human factor. Apart from the geodata, I also mentioned that we are collecting, during the pilot, we are collecting different data sets, that is personal information. We are looking at communication aspects of these clients. We are looking at location. We are looking at the farm details. What are the kind of practices the farmer is doing? What are the kind of activities? What kind of cropping system does he have? We're also looking at the general field information, crop information. We're looking at production information, both historical and then the financial instruments that this farmer has for some of the specific activities that he's doing, but also some activities that we may think that are not related. We're also looking at different credit histories that he has, his transactional cost for other things. All these, we are looking at them, and even his education level, his household, and then we are looking at them and we are running algorithms around them using a bit of machine learning to harness all this data, a bit of weighting to really give a clear indication of what is the risk associated with this farmer. How can we be able to unlock these farmers who have not been been receiving loans before. That is one of the approaches we are doing in the pilot. So we are not forgetting the human factor. We want to see how the human factor, the geodata, the enterprise data can all come together to provide a very good score that can be acceptable to financial institutions.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I have two more questions before we really need to wrap it up. One comes from Gira for Jehiel. What is the business model of Hello Tractor? If you could answer that very briefly. And then afterwards, Krishna, one to you. Where do you get historic data from?
Sure.
So that's a pretty quick question. Our business model is fairly simple. We sell hardware to tractor owners that's fitted onto the tractor.
Well, that was indeed a short answer.
So this is Krishna.
Yeah.
So I'm taking that question on the historical data. So,
yep.
As I mentioned, we while we were doing this, providing the software for the farm management, a lot of data got collected on the platform from farmer, crop, the profile, the inputs going into the farm, and the kind of yield, which we use for the machine learning. So we fuse the data with the weather and the satellite images to build signatures for various crops. So we have about 265 crops on the platform. Once we successfully did build the signatures and patterns for those crops, so if the new farmer comes on the platform, so let's say a bank goes to a farmer and tags a new farm, he wants us to tell, can you tell me what he did in 2014, which crop he did? Because farmer is saying he has done corn, he has done cotton, can you validate that? And we can use these patterns, so through the machine learning, to say, okay, he's saying corn, but it was not corn, it was a barley, or it was a cotton, right? So we can historically validate those data so that you can, with accuracy, you can say what could have been the income in 2014 for this farmer, because he took 2 crops and these were the crops he has done. So we do the signature matching for every pixel. So our pixel size is 10 by 10 meters. So for every acre, there will be 40 such pixels, and for an hectare, it could be 80, 90 such pixels. So we analyze those pixels, and then we say it was a corn or it was a wheat. So that's how we build a new history on that farmer, even if you don't have a history for that particular farmer. So that's the power of the technology here.
Thank you, Krishna. I hope that answers the question. That leaves me to wrap up this webinar. I want to thank all the speakers for providing their insights and their presentations. We started with Rajiv Shetty, who basically said that technology has the potential to link different participants in the value chain and process massive amounts of data for risk evaluation, but also for monitoring. The 3 companies that presented afterwards actually showed how this works in practice. So VanderSat, Céline, and Albert from Rabo, and Amos from Acre showed how geodata can reduce risk as well as transaction costs. From Krishna at CropIn, we learned that a dashboard for a financial institution can share lots of data around historic crop performance and monitoring that crop after the provision of a loan. Again, offering a reduction of 50% in the time it takes to decide upon a loan provision and monitoring that same loan. And lastly, Jehiel from Hello Tractor showed how both MFIs and banks can finance the farmers as well as the tractor owners in a more effective way by looking at the area in which the farmer operates and the number of tractors and the busyness of tractors that works. Thanks again for all the speakers. I hope this was useful for everyone on the line. If you want, we can connect the different speakers with the attendees of the webinar, and we'll also share the slides as well as the recording of this webinar. Thank you, wishing everyone a great day, and hope to see you at the next webinar. Thanks also to our co-host, the NPM platform for inclusive finance. All right, have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lonneke.
Thanks, everybody.